Today is day 4 in Mercy Creek, and the lesson comes from something Jesus said in Mark chapter 2. When the righteous leaders questioned why he was eating with tax collectors and sinners, Jesus answered them with words that still reach into every church, every family, and every human heart. He said, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners." Now, that does not mean that Jesus ignored sin. It means Jesus did not come to build a room where only polished people felt welcome. He came for the wounded, the ashamed, the rejected, the ones standing outside wondering if there is still a place for them. And on Sunday morning in Mercy Creek, after the storm had passed, Jesus walked into a church with one empty chair in the back pew. And that chair, well, it was about to teach the whole town what grace really means. The rain from Saturday had washed the dust off Main Street. By Sunday morning, Mercy Creek looked cleaner than it felt. The diner windows were dry again. The courthouse steps still held puddles. The sign over Miller's garage dripped water from one rusted corner. Grace Bennett stood in the kitchen before church, tying Lily's hair ribbon with hands that still carried yesterday's worry. The storm had reminded her how fragile everything was. The diner, the bills, the life she was trying to hold together, but it also reminded her that she was not holding it alone. Across town, Nora Reyes buttoned Mateo's little shirt while trying not to yawn. She had worked late at the clinic again, but something about what Jesus had said during the storm stayed with her. You do not have to prove you are strong by refusing to rest. At Miller's garage, Hank Miller stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at himself like he was preparing for a fight. His brother Sam had come home. That was the truth. Hank had not fully forgiven him. That was also the truth. But for the first time in years, Sam's truck was parked outside the garage, and Hank had not told him to leave. That was something. Not everything, but something. At Mercy Creek Community Church, Pastor Caleb Brooks arrived early. He straightened bulletins, checked the microphone, moved a stack of hymnals, then moved them back. He was nervous, though he would not have called it that. The last 3 days had shaken him. Jesus had walked into a grocery store and turned a declined card into a lesson on compassion. Jesus had stood near 2 brothers and made forgiveness feel less like a sermon and more like a wound asking to be cleaned. Jesus had spoken through a storm and reminded frightened hearts that tomorrow belonged to God. Now it was Sunday. Pastor Caleb wondered what Jesus would do in church. That thought embarrassed him. Church was supposed to be a place where Jesus was already welcome. But Caleb was honest enough to wonder if that was always true. People began arriving. Ruth Caldwell came in with her Bible pressed against her chest. Deputy Thomas Reed entered quietly and sat closer to the back than usual. Grace and Lily, they came in together. Nora arrived with Mateo half asleep against her shoulder. Hank came in alone. Then, a few minutes later, Sam walked in and sat on the opposite side of the sanctuary, Everyone noticed. Small towns notice everything. Then Jesus entered. There was no announcement, no music swelling, no spotlight. He simply walked in from the side door and took a seat near the middle, as if he had always belonged there. And somehow, that made everyone more aware of whether they believed everyone else belonged there too. The service began. Pastor Caleb welcomed the congregation. They sang, they prayed, a baby fussed, someone coughed. The old air conditioner rattled like it was fighting for its life. Then the back door opened. Eli Harper stepped inside. He wore jeans, a wrinkled black shirt, and the look of someone ready to leave before anyone could ask why he had come. The room changed. Not loudly, but enough. A few heads turned. A whisper moved across one row and died quickly. Eli saw it. Of course he saw it. People always think their judgment is quiet. It rarely is. He looked toward the back pew. There was that one empty chair at the end. He started toward it. Then Miss Pritchard, still ashamed from Thursday's mistake with the pharmacy billing, moved her purse off the chair beside her. Not dramatically, just enough to make room. Eli saw that too. He stopped, and for a second, it looked like he might sit beside her. Then he changed his mind and moved to the very back instead. The empty chair remained. Pastor Caleb stood behind the pulpit and looked down at his notes. His sermon title was The House of God. But his eyes kept moving to Eli, then to the empty chair, then to Jesus. Jesus looked back at him gently. Pastor Caleb closed his notes. The room went still. He said, "I had a sermon prepared this morning." A few people smiled. Pastors had said that before. But Caleb's voice trembled. "I was going to talk about how blessed we are to gather in the house of God. And we are blessed. But I think I need to say something else." He stepped away from the pulpit. "Sometimes we call this God's house, but we act like we own the chairs." No one moved. Caleb swallowed. "We decide who looks like they belong, who has been here long enough, who has made too many mistakes, who makes us uncomfortable, who needs to sit closer to the back until they prove something to us." Eli stared at the floor. Caleb looked toward him, but did not make a show of him. Then Jesus stood. He did not walk to the pulpit. He walked to the back. Every eye followed him. Jesus stopped beside Eli, and the boy looked up, tense and embarrassed. Jesus said softly, "May I sit with you?" Eli blinked. "You want to sit back here?" "Yes." "Why?" Jesus looked around the room. "Because this is where the physician is needed." The words landed heavily. Pastor Caleb's face changed. Ruth pressed a tissue to her eyes. Miss Pritchard lowered her head. Jesus sat beside Eli in the back pew. Not because the front was wrong, but because the back had become the place where shame was trying to hide. Pastor Caleb opened his Bible. He read from Mark chapter 2. When Jesus heard it, he said to them, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners. Then he looked at the congregation. That means the church is not a museum for people who have never struggled. It is a hospital for people who know they need mercy. The room was quiet enough to hear the old building creak. Then something happened that no one expected. Hank Miller stood. He looked across the sanctuary at Sam. His face was hard, but his voice was not. "My brother came home," Hank said, "and I've been making him earn every inch of the room I let him stand in." Sam looked down. Hank continued, "I don't know how to fix it all yet, but I know what it feels like to keep an empty chair open in name only." He looked at the space behind him. "Sam, you can sit here." No one breathed. Sam stood slowly. He crossed the aisle. He sat beside his brother. They did not hug. They did not cry. They did not fix 8 years in one Sunday. But Hank did not move away. And sometimes grace begins there. Then Miss Pritchard stood, shaking. She turned toward the back. "Eli," she said, "I accused you before I loved you. I am sorry." Eli's jaw tightened, but Jesus sat beside him, steady and near. Eli did not answer. He did not have to. Grace reached for Lily's hand. Nora held Mateo closer. Deputy Reed removed his hat from the pew beside him, as if he suddenly understood that even a hat could take a place meant for a person. Pastor Caleb looked around the church. "So, maybe the question this morning is not whether Jesus is welcome here." He paused. "Maybe the question is whether the people Jesus came for are welcome here." That, well, that was the sermon. No polished ending, no perfect outline, no 3 points, just truth. After the service, people did not rush out like usual. They moved slower, softer. Ruth hugged Miss Pritchard. Grace invited Nora and Mateo to lunch at the diner. Deputy Reed stopped beside Eli and said, "I'm glad you came." Eli shrugged, but he did not leave. Sam stood near Hank by the door, and Hank looked uncomfortable. Then he said, "You hungry?" Sam looked surprised. "Yeah." Hank nodded toward Grace's diner. "Come on, then." That was all. But in Mercy Creek, that was a miracle big enough for a Sunday. Outside, the air smelled clean after rain. Jesus stood on the church's steps while the town gathered in small groups around him. Pastor Caleb walked up beside him. "I thought I was leading the service," Caleb said. Jesus smiled. "You did. It didn't feel like it." "Good." Caleb laughed softly. "Good." Jesus looked toward the people. A shepherd does not lead by controlling every moment. He leads by making room for the lost sheep to be found. Caleb watched Eli standing near the edge of the sidewalk. Not quite part of the group, but not gone either. "I almost missed him," Caleb said. Jesus answered, "Then go stand near him." So Pastor Caleb did. No sermon, no pressure, just presence. And that was enough for the moment. You see, the lesson of day 4 is simple. Jesus did not come to fill churches with people pretending they are fine. He came to heal people honest enough to know that they are not. So, when someone walks into the room carrying shame, history, failure, addiction, anger, grief, divorce, fear, embarrassment, or a reputation they cannot outrun, the people of Jesus should not make them feel smaller. We should make room, because the empty chair in the back pew may not just be a chair. It may be an invitation. It may be a test of our love. It may be the place where Jesus chooses to sit. Tomorrow is day 5. And in Mercy Creek, Jesus is going to teach the town that greatness does not begin on a platform. It begins with a basin, a towel, and the humility to serve. My name is Douglas Vandergraph, and I believe in Jesus Christ. I can't wait to see you here tomorrow for day 5. God bless every single one of you. Every single one.